Hey guys, this is my first video in 4 years. I'm at my boyfriend's house right now. I don't know if any of my first subscribers are still around, but I know I mentioned a boyfriend back then. He and I broke up. This is my new boyfriend's house. We've been together for 2.5 years, and yeah, this is going to be a paranormal story time. I'm going to try to move quickly through it because it's almost midnight and it's Friday the 13th, and I want to post this on Friday the 13th. So I'm going to be telling you guys about some stuff that's happened here at my boyfriend's house, and then I'm going to tell you about something that happened with my mom a few years ago. So, some stuff that's happened here at my boyfriend's house. 3 people have actually passed away in the bedroom across the hall. His grandma, his great-grandma, and his uncle more recently. And I always hear noises in the kitchen or in the garage or just out in the hallway when I'm here by myself and while he's at work. I used to think that it was him coming back from work, and I would hear, I thought I heard voices too, so I always assumed, they're back from work, him and his dad, but they were never here. We used to have his mom's dog staying with us. She used to bark and just growl out of the. If she was in the room with me, I would have to close the door because she would kind of bark and growl out into the hallway. And one time she actually growled a lot at the garage door. She was barking at it like crazy. His little sister was here with me then, and so was his son. He has a little boy. And they can attest to it now that I'm going to bring them here on this video. But the dog was freaking out in the direction of the garage, and I was like, Lola, dog's name. I was like, calm down, nothing's in there, look. And I started to open the garage door, and she started whimpering and just backed away from the door before my dumbass remembered that dogs and cats and animals can see and hear and feel things that people can't, and she probably, that was, maybe what was going on. So I actually took my hands off the doorknob, closed it. I think I locked the garage door, and I was like, okay, let's just go into the bedroom. And that was that. I've also, the bedroom that everybody passed away in, that's where our bathroom is. That's the bathroom we use. So, I always turn on the bedroom light and the bathroom light. I didn't used to do that around when I first started coming here, but I was taking a shower one time and I heard my boyfriend had actually been in there with me at first, and then he left to play his Xbox, and all of a sudden I heard a really loud knock, just not quiet enough for the house to be settling or to be creaky noises or something. It was definitely a loud, I don't know if persistent is the right word, insistent maybe, a loud, insistent knock. And my first thought is he forgot something, so I was like, did you need something? Do I need to open the door? Because he locked it, and I didn't hear anything, so I was like, alright, maybe it's not that important. And then I came out and I asked him what it is that he had needed, and he said he did not knock. I asked him if he was messing with me, because that was my second thought, is oh, he's playing a prank, and he wasn't, or he insisted he wasn't. I know he's not lying, because he would have, owned up to it by now. I know him. His son was asleep in bed. It definitely wasn't him. His dad, who also lives here, was also in bed, and that's just not the bathroom he uses. He uses the one across the hall, forward in the hall, I guess. So, definitely wasn't anybody in the house knocking, which creeped me out. But I let it go. I just started turning on the lights when I go in there. Not just the bathroom light, but like I said, the bedroom light. And my boyfriend will occasionally turn off the light and close the door when he knows I'm using the bathroom so that he can jump out and scare me. And one time he did this, and I open the door and I see that obviously the light is off and the door is closed. So I start looking around to see if he's in there. I look in the direction of, there's a dresser in there, and a chair, so I checked to see if he was hiding in that corner. He wasn't. I checked to see if he was behind the curtains. All of this was from the doorway, because I never leave the doorway in case he decides to jump out at me when he does this. So I was just looking from there, and I actually sat on the floor as this was going on so that he couldn't, like I said, jump out at me. But I saw some movement that caught my eye, and on this side. So there's a couch right by the door, and I saw movement behind the couch. So I look in that direction, and I see the top of his head from here up, and he looks like he's adjusting himself behind the couch, like he's crouched back there. So I go, "Ha, I see you, you shouldn't have moved, now I know you're there." And it froze. He froze, because I saw him, obviously, he's caught. But then he walked into the bedroom. So I don't know what that was. It definitely looked like the top of his head, meaning like it was the forehead and his hairline. If it was his son, or if it had been trying to look like his son, I would have seen, bangs, but it was dark hair, forehead, very creepy. Once he came in, I think I made him turn on the light, and I was just like, let's go. And that's what happened there. I also woke up one time in the middle of the night and saw a silhouette on this side of me, because I'm on the bed right now. It was that way. There's a closet right there. It was a shadow, the silhouette of a man, just kind of there. I only saw maybe the torso up. I thought about waking my boyfriend up. I sat there for a few seconds staring at it, trying to see if it would go away, or wondering if I was dreaming. I definitely wasn't. I know the difference between how it feels when you're dreaming and when you wake up, and it was definitely me being awake. So I thought of waking him up, but I knew he wouldn't believe me, and I didn't want to get even more creeped out, and I just decided to ignore it, as you're supposed to with these things. And so I cuddled back up to him and I went to bed. The thing that happened with my mom a few years ago in her ex's house, there are Ouija boards in the garage in that house. I used to hate sleeping there when I was little. I would go every so often on the weekends. I didn't live with them. I lived with my grandparents because I couldn't stand her ex. And I would always hate it because I would wake up in the middle of the night and hear what sounded like something or somebody, moving around in the garage and coming out and hanging out in the kitchen. It sounded like they were, I always heard like a cup being put on the counter, like a plastic cup. I know that's really specific, but I was really young at the time, and I always thought they were messing with like the blue ones, because we had some blue cups, and for the kids to use. So I would always turn around to see if whoever it was would go into one of the bedrooms. I was in the living room. The bedrooms were here and here. My mom was on this side with her ex, and her ex's mom was on this side. And the bathroom was here in the hall. Like, hall's back there, bedroom's at the back of it, and bathroom that way. So, that way. Nobody ever came out or went into the bedroom. I always tried to see if they would so that I could watch TV or something so that I could go back to bed, but that never happened. I would just kind of have to force myself to go back to sleep despite all the creepy shit I was hearing. But my mom woke up one time in the middle of the night. I had been sleeping over, but this was before all that. I was 4 years old. I was in the room with them, and I was asleep on the bed, and she was pregnant with my brother. So she woke up, and she thought that she heard voices. She thought it was the TV in the kitchen, and she figured her boyfriend was watching TV in the kitchen because she can't sleep with any lights or noise around her. So she figured he just went in the kitchen to not disturb her. And so she puts her ear on the wall to try to hear what they're saying or what he's watching, and it sounded like right as she put her ear on the wall, like they turned it down, the volume, so you can still hear like a conversation going, but it's even more quiet. And she was like, that's so weird that happens right as I put my ear to the wall to hear what's going on. And then her boyfriend came out of the bathroom and he was like, "Hey, what's up? Are you okay?" And she's like, "Are you watching TV or is the TV on?" And he's like, "No, I was shaving." And she's like, "I heard voices. I thought it was the TV." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, you hear that sometimes, or that happens sometimes, but you can never tell what they're saying." And she's like, "You hear voices sometimes in the middle of the night, when nobody's talking?" And he was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "That's not normal." So she sat up, I think to give him, I don't know, a piece of her mind, or to tell him that that's weird and, he should look into that. And she's sitting on the bed facing the doorway. Like I said, the bedroom's back here, so she can see into the living room from there. And she saw a short black figure glide from one end of the living room to the other and head toward the garage. And she was like, "What the fuck?" And then she saw another much taller, much bigger figure glide, or start to glide, from the living room again toward the garage, but it stopped. It turned around and looked at her, and that scared the shit out of her because it started coming toward her. And her boyfriend, who was watching her and facing her while all this happened, will tell you that her face went white and her pupils dilated when she saw it. I don't think he turned around. I don't really know why. I think he was just focused on her because, she was pregnant with his baby. And it sounded, as this thing was coming toward her, she says it sounded like somebody with asthma trying to breathe. Like somebody can't breathe, or like somebody who's choking trying to breathe, just very, I'm not going to mimic it, but I'm sure you can imagine. And she freaked out. She looked at me on the bed and she thought about the fact that she was pregnant, and she was just like, "No." So we're Catholic, and I'm not asking anybody to believe in that sort of thing. You don't even have to believe these stories if you don't want to. I know not everybody's going to, but they're true, whether you decide to believe them or not. So she started praying because that's all she could think to do. And it stopped right in the doorway, or right at the doorway, turned, and then went to the garage, and then there was a huge crash in the garage because it was pissed off that it couldn't get into the bedroom. Her boyfriend, who didn't believe in this at the time, got really freaked out because he was like, "Somebody's in the house, I need to go check that out." And she's like, "Don't you leave me, don't go anywhere." And he was like, "No, somebody's here, like someone broke in, I need to." And she's like, "No." And she was like, "We're going to my mom's house tonight." She was like, "You can come over, you can sleep over, but we're not going out through the garage." Because for some reason, we always used to leave through the kitchen and open the garage door and go out there instead of using the front door. I don't know why. But that happened that night. Scared the shit out of her. The boards are still in the garage. She tried to sell them a few years ago and she couldn't find them. I have not been to that house in years, and I don't intend to go back. My little cousin actually slept over one night, like years and years ago when he was really little, and he saw something. He told his mom when he came back home, my aunt, that he had seen an angel. And he said, he's like, it was black and it had red eyes and it was eating ribs, and he had his weapon. It was, I think he said it was like a spiked bat or something with like a handle and a ball of spikes. I don't know what that's called. Something with spikes. And he was like, he was eating his ribs, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and then he went back to eating his ribs. And my little cousin has had this weird like affinity for ribs ever since then. He just really likes eating them. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen beforehand, although my aunt, who's super religious, then said that he could no longer come over and like sleep over there anymore. She was like, that wasn't an angel that you saw. He was really little, way too little to make this up. And she was like, you're not sleeping over there again. And yeah, so he, at the time, he kind of figured it out. He was very straightforward, and he was just like, oh, it was a demon. And she was like, yeah. And that's it for now. It's 2 minutes to midnight, and I'm so sorry, but this probably isn't going to get uploaded in time. I'll be coming back with more stories. I'll try to be more active. So sorry I took so long, but yeah. Love you guys. Bye.